Hello everyone, today I'm bringing you the recipe for Nigerian tomato stew. Here, this is a very tasty recipe that all Nigerian households have, and there are very many variations of it. And today I have filmed this video to show you how I make the tomato stew, and I hope you guys like, comment and subscribe. Thank you for watching. So to start off this recipe, I'm going to create the broth. That's the broth from the meat after you cook it. So right now I'm just going to dice up half an onion, which I'm going to use to boil the meat, just like that. And for this recipe I'm using the beef shank, and you can see it has a lot of tissue, a lot of tendons, and I love this part of the meat because of the different texture you get when you bite into the meat. It's quite, I don't know if I'll explain, like when you bite into it, it's a bit crunchy. Some parts are kind of like elastic, but I think it's an acquired taste because I know certain cultures don't like it. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and cut the meat, and you just take your time here and cut however you want it. Or if you can save some time by asking your butcher to cut it up for you if they have the option. But for this recipe I bought it whole and I just cut it myself at home because I really didn't want to spend so much time at the store because of, you know, the situation going on. So just take your time with it and cut it yourself. And also, before I started cutting the meat, I soaked it in a vinegar solution for like 30 minutes just to disinfect it. So I used just plain white vinegar solution to soak the meat in for a few minutes before I washed it and chopped it up like I'm doing right now. So that's our meat, nice and clean, and it's going to go into that pot that I just put there. For this broth, for this meat, I'm going to use the fresh onions, of course, some fresh ginger, a little bit of black pepper, nutmeg, of course, my favorite seasoning, a little bit of cloves, the fresh cloves I made from my previous video, 2 Maggi cubes, and a little bit of salt. I just used a little bit of my favorite seasoning to do this. But in Nigeria you usually use fresh onions, curry, thyme and Maggi cubes. That's the 3 major ingredients most Nigerians use. But I just go ahead and you know, I learned more about spices, and I think when cooking meat, the 2 spices you should always use are cloves and nutmeg. I think those 2 spices can be used in whatever meat recipe you have. It just does something to the meat. So that's the meat ready to be cooked right after I add the Maggi cubes. You don't have to add the Maggi cubes again, but this just gives you that extra flavor that I like. So always wash your hands when you're done doing the meat. Like I didn't show you, but after I cut the meat I washed my hands thoroughly before I moved on to touching the seasonings, because remember, you don't want to transfer bacteria from the meat to other parts of the house. So this is the meat about 15 minutes into cooking in low medium heat. This meat is going to cook for 40 minutes. In total, I think it cooked for about an hour because of the tendons and the tissue on the meat. It's going to cook for a while so everything is soft and easy to chew. So this is the meat when it's completely cooked. You can see the liquid is quite thick, and you can almost see the difference in between when it was half cooked and now when it's fully cooked. You can almost see the change in the texture. So now it's cooked. I'm going to that's a glass sheet. I'm going to take the meat and put it in the oven for like 30 minutes just to brown it, so you get that I'm trying to get like a smoky meat without, you know, using an actual grill. So I'm just gonna put that and then pop it in the oven on 450 Fahrenheit, so it will cook, so it get the brown the meat, so it will taste good for our sauce. So everything is, I think, it's quite easy to follow if you watch the video carefully. But again, you can always leave comments and ask me questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And again, I'm going through because I don't want to put the tendons in the oven, because what happens is when the temperature increases, it's just going to start popping in the oven, and I don't want to cause any accidents, you know. So I took out the tendons and I just put the meat that in the oven, just like that. And again, I put this in for about 30 to 40 minutes, but it's going to change depending on the oven that you have, so make sure that you watch closely. So this is, of course, this is what the meat looks when we're done browning. You can see how nice and everything and brownie looks. And this is what I'm going to use in the sauce. So that's what it looks like. You can go browner if you want to, of course. So for this, I've washed up 1 bell pepper or tatashe, and I use, I think, about 8 fresh peppers, fresh tomatoes, and I use 4 habaneros, and I'm going to blend it in the blender into a smooth paste. Just like that. I'm just going to blend it. And then it would take this took me just about a few minutes. Depending on your machine, it might be faster, it might be slower. So that's what you want it to look like when you're done. You want it to be quite smooth and quite you want it to be smooth, just like that. You want the consistency to look something like that. It's quite thick, but we're going to go ahead and put that in the pan, and we'll want to get rid of the excess water. So just pour that paste in the pan and put your pan on medium heat. Turn the stove on to medium heat and dry off the excess so the water can evaporate. This took me about an hour, I think, because I wanted it to be completely dry. Yeah, the Nigerian food process is quite long, but I feel like this one is durable. You just have to stay in the kitchen for at least 4 to 5 hours. Of course, I'm filming, so I was trying to be really careful and make sure I took different shots at different angles, so it took me a bit longer. So I guess if you're cooking without filming it, it might take less time. But yeah, this is the tomato sauce when the water has completely evaporated. So now we're going to start making the stew. There's some vegetable oil, about 1 cup of vegetable oil. Again, I'll put the ingredients, list of ingredients, in the description box, and I think in the beginning of the video as well, so you have to pause that to watch. Pause the ingredient slide to get all the ingredients that you need for this recipe. And for that is half an onion. There are many onion that was left. from the meat broth, and we're just going to saute that in the vegetable oil. The onion is going to give you some sweetness, and we're also going to go in with some tomato paste, so just 2 big tablespoons of tomatoes, and we're going to fry it first with the onion, and the onion would get rid of that, you know, that sour taste that tomato paste usually have. So that's why we're going to saute the tomato paste first, just like that. Like I said, we use 2 tablespoons or 2 scoops, and we're just going to put that in the onions that we're frying right there, and then we're just going to stir, and make sure you stir frequently because this burns very quickly. So there it is. We're gonna keep stirring. Make sure that you're in the kitchen, and make sure you're watching this closely, like I said previously. I covered it for a little bit so that everything gets to cook gradually, and so this is what it looks like when everything has melted, when the onions and the tomato paste have, like, you know, kind of come together. And now I'm adding in the dried tomato puree that we blended earlier, the blended tomato puree that we dried. So I'm adding it to that fried tomato paste and onion, so that everything comes together uniformly. So of course you're just going to stir it in, just like that. And the habanero peppers are really hot. So what I did was, when I tasted it, it was really spicy. So what I did is I had some extra tomato paste in the fridge and I added it to it. I did not add that to the clip, unfortunately. But yeah, as you can see, I've added that tomato paste that I had in the freezer earlier, just to tone down the heat, and it worked quite well. So just stir and fry. This is going to fry for at least 30 minutes. To give you that smoky Nigerian stew taste, you're gonna add paprika to it. Stir and then let fry. Make sure you're doing this at medium heat, because you don't want it to skip the cooking and go straight to burning. You want to keep everything on medium heat. And I'm also going to add some red hot peppers. I know it says hot, but it's not really hot. This is just to give you, again, a little bit of that smoky Nigerian stew taste that we all love when we go to our mothers and grandma's houses when we go to eat. So we're just going to keep stirring. Again, that cooked for another 10 minutes before I added the broth. So that's the broth from the meat that we cooked earlier. So notice that I didn't add any other seasoning while I was cooking the tomatoes, because the broth, as you can see, we added quite a bit of seasoning when we were making it earlier. So we're going to add it and let it saute for a little bit, and then taste it, and then we can add as much, we can adjust the seasoning as we go. We can add, if it's not tasty enough, what I'm trying to say, I'm just going to add more salt. But usually that the broth is enough. But I'm just going to stir, and then I wanted a little bit more nutmeg, so I added just a tiny bit of nutmeg, just like that. And then of course I'm going to stir and then let that simmer again for another 10 minutes. I'm going to add 1 Maggi cube to it, because I wanted it to be a bit more tasty. This is going to splash everywhere, so be careful. As you can see, the oil is just splattering everywhere. So when you're going to put the meat, I recommend that you turn the heat of the stove down to the minimum, so that it doesn't splash all over you. or you can just take it off the stove completely and put it on a stove that it's not on, and then put your meat in and then cover it and put it back on the burner where that you were cooking previously. But what I did is I just turned the heat down to the minimum heat, and then pour the meat in and then stir it. And that's pretty much it, guys. As you can see, everything is cooked perfectly. It's thick and it just looks so delicious, and I ate this with some rice. You can eat this with your fufu, whatever you want, or potatoes. So that's the recipe, guys. Hopefully you guys try to recreate it, and thank you for staying with me.